The fate of humankind is uncertain. According to the United Nations, world population will grow to nearly 9 billion by the year 2050, 2 billion more than the number living on Earth today. Where will we all live? How will we meet our needs for energy and water, shelter and food? If the needs of a growing population weren't enough, scientists tell us our atmosphere is starting to heat up. And on our present course, a warmer planet will mean changing climate patterns and more violent weather events, growing water insecurity, sea level rise, failed crop production in some parts of the world, and losses of plant, animal, and insect species never to return. Our children and theirs may never enjoy the rich diversity of life we take for granted. Fresh air and clean water may no longer be assured. Human activities may not be the only reasons for a changing environment, but they are contributing factors. At the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, carbon molecules in the atmosphere numbered 280 parts per million. In 2012, the level was approximately 391 parts per million, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. If unchecked, higher levels of carbon dioxide, along with other greenhouse gases, will only accelerate what scientists call the global greenhouse effect.
The greenhouse effect is a situation where solar radiation is trapped in an increasingly dense Earth atmosphere, less able to disperse heat. Many scientists believe this trapped heat is starting to cause changes in weather patterns that will continue to have negative impacts on ecological systems for the foreseeable future.
The needs of our growing population, including the need for more energy, are already taxing strained natural systems. They may eventually lead to shortages of food and fresh water, affecting tens of millions, perhaps billions, in the decades to come.
Without serious changes in how we meet our needs, global warming may someday render our planet uninhabitable to millions. The predictions are bleak.
Why should we live more sustainably? After all, we can continue business as usual, degrade the world around us, and eons from now, the Earth will renew itself. Unfortunately, we may not be here to see it. In 1943, Dr. Abraham Maslow, founder of the humanistic psychology movement, posed the theory that humans are motivated by a hierarchy of needs, the most basic being our needs for food and air, water and sleep, procreation, and others.
The highest level of motivation, according to Maslow, is the need for self-actualization, characterized by morality and creativity, spontaneity and problem-solving, a lack of prejudices, and the acceptance of facts.
Abraham Maslow viewed our responsibilities in a staged, kind of hierarchical approach. Abraham Maslow also included these ideas of peak experiences, very, very profound moments of joy and wisdom and insight and enlightenment that might lend us to think about the generations after us, that might lend us to think about the environment and the earth as a whole, as well as our responsibility to that because of these profound experiences that connect us on a great level to nature, to other people, to individuals, to plants and animals, to life as we know it, as well as the possibilities and the potentials of life in the future, even beyond our own personal existence.
Could a similar hierarchy of needs apply to human behavior on a global scale? ultimately determining the fate of our species. As a race, are we motivated to achieve our potential through peak experiences? What are the limits of human potential?
Will we spread out into the cosmos? Will we unravel the mysteries of nature? Will humans achieve higher levels of consciousness?
If the answers are yes, can we hope to achieve these higher stages of development, or what Abraham Maslow calls peak experiences, if the ability to meet even our basic needs is uncertain? Technological developments in the 20th and early 21st centuries alone suggest that, in the future, humankind may indeed become a highly advanced civilization. But the basic laws of physics tell us we may never reach our potential unless we learn to live in balance with the planetary life support systems that sustain us.
It takes a whole year of burning fossil fuels, oil, gas, in order to make the same amount of energy that we get in 1 hour from the sun. Burning fossil fuels generates a lot of CO2, 90 million tons each and every single day. That's 9 million trucks of CO2 going up, poof, in the air every day, day after day, year after year. About half stays in the atmosphere for a very, very, very long time, and it traps a lot of heat. The heat stays there and accumulates in the atmosphere.
For our civilization to be truly sustainable, we'll need to change a range of activities in all aspects of our lives. We'll need to generate power cleanly, live differently, and rely on new sources of energy to move people and things. Fortunately, several options are already at hand.
The United States imports approximately 9 million barrels of oil a day. We rank second in the world in overall energy use and seventh in per capita energy consumption.
Remarkably, we represent only 5% of global population, but use over 25% of the energy produced throughout the world. The energy needs of emerging economies in India, China, and other developing countries will only add to already heavy demands for power like ours.
The U.S. Energy Information Administration tells us that electricity will supply an increasing share of the world's energy needs in the years to come. Today, electricity accounts for about 40% of the power we use in the U.S.
But according to the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, solar energy made up less than 1% of the utility-scale electricity produced in 2010. In the same year, solar energy made up only 0.1% of residential power, while wind energy represented a little more than 0.9% of the power produced by utilities. Our energy independence and the fight against global warming will require low carbon-emitting electricity production from sources like solar and wind. But because solar and wind power are not available around the clock, other sources must fill in to keep our lights on. To make greater use of renewables, we'll need more reliable and efficient ways to store the energy they produce.
The problem is the grid that we have set up today was developed based on conventional power generation sources, where we have a steady generation of electricity 24/7. We have electric batteries, large-scale batteries whereby we can store energy, but that's not a very efficient process. We need to have a significant storage option, whereas we can store energy when it's available and then we can use it when the demand is on the grid. Many companies are working on advanced energy storage systems. One company, for example, is working on sodium-ion batteries, and there is another new technology, isothermal compressed air storage in tanks. We want to have an advanced energy storage capacity so that we can store energy when it's available and then use it when the demand comes in.
The Advanced Research Projects Agency for Energy, or ARPA-E, at the U.S. Department of Energy tells us that the development of disruptive, new, low-cost grid-scale energy storage will allow the U.S. to assume global technology and manufacturing leadership in the emerging and potentially massive global market for grid-scale energy storage infrastructure. New technologies will help our society overcome the temporary challenges of power storage to enable wider and more consistent uses of wind, solar, and other forms of renewable energy. More than 50% of Americans live within 50 miles of the coast. Areas in some parts of the country where almost 500 gigawatts of power could be generated by marine and hydrokinetic or MHK technology. MHK technology produces electricity using the energy found in waves, tides, ocean currents, rivers, and streams. Combined with traditional hydropower, MHK technologies could meet 15% of our electricity needs by the year 2030.
There are two different approaches for extracting energy from ocean or sea. One is wave extraction device, second one is tidal turbine.
The objective is to take the energy out of the wave and convert it to electricity.
Wave extraction devices, you can think a body floating on sea surface or ocean surface. As wave pass along, that body will move up and down, and this up and down motion of that body can be converted into electricity. The other approach for extracting energy from sea or ocean is by use of tidal turbines. You can think tidal turbine as wind turbine, which are under sea or ocean surface in a tidal zone. During high tide and low tides, seawater will flow over it, and you can extract energy from that and convert it into electricity.
The United States is significantly behind Europe on deployment of anything to do with marine hydrokinetic technology.
There are two basic challenges in the field of marine hydrokinetic devices. First, we lack necessary infrastructure. Second, we need to do extensive research before we can tap full potential of marine hydrokinetic devices.
What you'll see is a grid of marine cables such that you can essentially plug and play wave farms along the most promising areas of the United States.
Brought to scale, marine and hydrokinetic technologies could produce more than a terawatt of energy, according to the U.S. government. Over a third of the power consumed by Americans every year, and enough to meet the energy needs of over 100 million homes.
Even better, the International Energy Agency estimates MHK technology could produce an extra 748 gigawatts in other parts of the world by the year 2050.
In 2008, the United States used 19.5 million barrels of petroleum every day, with 70% of that, or just a little more than 13.5 million barrels consumed by the transport sector. In the US, transportation is responsible for about 30% of our CO2 emissions. With millions of new car drivers expected in the years ahead, we'll have to use alternative fuels that greatly reduce, even eliminate transportation-related emissions. As a whole, light-duty vehicles like cars, trucks, and vans account for 60% of all the petroleum used in the transport sector. With today's technology, electric vehicles, or EVs, can reduce CO2 emissions by as much as 34% compared to their internal combustion engine counterparts. But while EVs can help reduce carbon emissions, certain challenges have prevented their large-scale adoption. Today, battery storage capacity is still limited, although progress is being made in this area. At the same time, the limited range and cost of many commercially available EVs still keep people from owning them. Technical breakthroughs may spur a profound change in the way we power our cars, the effects our methods of transportation have on the environment, and ultimately ourselves. Despite the temporary limitations of EVs, Vision Industries Chief Operating Officer John Mizumi is an American car manufacturer who thinks that electricity is the most logical form of alternative fuel.
We're primarily responsible for the production of the Vision SCR American sports car, and we've also built several alternate fuel and alternate powered prototype vehicles. We realize some of the advantages still of gas. It's very energy dense. It's readily accessible. There's a huge infrastructure in place. It's been around for 100 years. However, we also realize the downside, the environmental concerns, and the fact that a lot of our fossil fuels comes from overseas. And although this is now beginning to change, which is a good thing, still I think we've got a long way to go. Electric vehicles pollute from coal-burning power plants generated miles away. But we still believe it's far easier to monitor a relatively fewer number of power plants rather than millions of vehicles driving around on the road. The downside of electric vehicles is that it currently takes about 200 to 300 pounds of batteries to propel an electric vehicle about 25 to 30 miles down the road. Once we can establish greater charging capacities, shorter charging times to bring the electric vehicle up to par with a gasoline vehicle in terms of range, we'll see more excess energy, so to speak, to be able to put back into the grid. If gasoline remains at or above $5 a gallon, we can see that the investments being made to improve battery technology and EV technology in general to increase range, charging times will go down, and EVs will become much more cost-effective and much more available to the masses.
Widespread deployment of cost-effective, electrified light-duty vehicles represents a tremendous opportunity for dramatic reductions in U.S. oil imports. Broad use of EVs will require batteries with more than twice the energy storage available today, at a third of the cost. Fortunately, advances in energy storage management can rapidly accelerate the adoption of both electric vehicles and grid-scale energy storage.
Buildings consume 40% of the primary energy produced in the US and 72% of all electricity. They also account for 55% of the natural gas consumed across the nation. This thirst for energy, split almost evenly between the commercial and residential sectors, accounts for about 40% of the CO2 emissions in our country.
By itself, space cooling represents almost 13% of the primary energy consumed in buildings and building-related CO2 emissions. This amounts to about 5% of our primary energy consumption and 5% of related emissions of carbon dioxide.
We should manage energy properly because through proper energy management, we will achieve economic benefits. For companies, it will increase their profitability, their competitiveness, and their productivity. For individuals, it will increase their quality of life. The first step in building energy management is to become energy efficient. Second, you have to prepare for those times when the grid cannot handle the load called demand response. Then you add renewables. We have to view energy management as a low-risk investment. When companies invest in energy efficiency and save $1, they will see $1 or more added to their bottom line.
Between 2006 and 2030, our population is expected to increase by 21%. The number of households will increase by 25% in the same period. In that 24-year span, U.S. commercial building space is projected to grow by 35%. However, between 2010 and 2030, building floor space is expected to grow 8.5% annually in India and 3.5% each year in China. This will contribute to significant increases in energy demand by the building sector worldwide. Because of this demand, energy efficiency measures in buildings offer a prime opportunity to reduce consumption and, in the process, greenhouse gas emissions. To help avoid the rather dismal climate future scientists see on the horizon, we'll need to reduce the footprint of our built environment in no small measure. Fortunately, a movement towards sustainability has begun to sweep the building industry in the US and many other countries. Developers are now following green building practices to construct homes, offices, concert halls, schools, and many other types of structures designed to have a much smaller environmental footprint than their last century counterparts, especially when it comes to energy use.
We need to draw on our strong points to create a global movement, if you will, or a global initiative to better manage energy and create those intelligent buildings.
Peaking urbanization is very critical. There may be an issue where once we come to maximum opportunity for people to live in a sustainable way in the urban environment, and we're going to have to look at alternatives as to where people are going to live and how resources are going to be driven to them. If we follow the lessons that nature provides us and just are very, very smart, then we'll avoid some of the things that we have a tendency right now to follow that are going to be very, very ruinous. We must learn how to do much more with fewer resources, and we must recognize that those resources are finite. The United States is the most important player when it comes to building systems, when it comes to things like efficiency measures, because of the relationship between the overall environment and how people's actual practices on a daily basis occur.
Simply put, smarter buildings and designed communities that use energy wisely, generate their own power, even become a part of our ecosystems, represent another stage of our development as a species. Someday we'll need even smarter buildings to house our activities in other parts of the solar system and beyond. The question is, can we transform our built environment here on Earth through restorative architecture and engineering in time to avoid the environmental tipping points some believe are already upon us? Some futurists have suggested a great, near unimaginable destiny for mankind, a higher purpose for humans involving the movement of our civilization into space and on to other worlds, higher levels of consciousness, and a greater understanding of the universe itself. If we are to reach these heights, mankind must live on, in balance, as part of the natural world. People are finding cleaner methods of generating power, and they're starting to embrace more sustainable ways of developing and living in their communities.
I think that there's a lot of ways that we're managing our own resources in terms of the way that we're going and getting food instead of from the market, we're getting it from farmers markets. There's car sharing programs, there's barter situations. And also there's some real incredible opportunities when it comes to energy and the way that we power our homes and our lives. One of the more interesting things that's actually developing is people getting electric cars and then powering it from solar panels.
Others have realized that more efficient uses of energy in the production of goods and the provision of services can play a significant role in limiting what we ask of the environment.
Most every major corporation has some sustainability officer or a sustainability department or a corporate social sustainability role. It is a question of our larger destiny and where we're going, and how does each business and each person in society fit into that larger destiny of humanity.
In turn, this enlightened approach to industrial behavior may help assure that the needs of future generations can be met while we meet our own. To become a still greater civilization that may someday achieve its magnificent potential, we'll need disruptive energy technologies that leap beyond those we know today. Breakthroughs in energy storage, marine and hydrokinetic energy, building energy management, alternative fuels, and others yet to come will be essential.
Where we are now and our current existence is really the result of those who came before us.
If we're looking at evolving, we've got to look at a one people, one planet kind of approach. Being very, very aware of what is taking place in an extra Earth perspective provides us with an opportunity to be more defensive and more protective of our planet, and at the same time, the lessons that we learn about other planets certainly give us a sense of how we are good stewards of our own planet.
If we backtrack, rethink our actions, rethink the consequences of what we do, how do we get our energy, our food, water, and stop generating waste in ways that do not destroy the planet, that is a worthwhile use of our time here on the planet.
Our past is proof that we have overcome all challenges and odds by finding innovative solutions. Right now, we are not looking too far ahead. If we want our civilization to survive and grow for thousands of years, we must look beyond our short-term goals and aspirations.
Energy management is critical to transforming the global economy. All across the world, we can learn from each other. The U.S. can learn from other countries, and other countries can learn from us.
With a little hope, we'll be able to reduce both carbon emissions and an escalating consumption of the natural resources that will be needed to sustain a population of nearly 9 billion by mid-century. We've heard from experts who believe that humankind must live more sustainably if it is to survive. Scientists tell us that we are at a crossroad, and that if we don't act now, we may not be able to reverse the harmful effects of over 300 years of industrial civilization, no matter how much we innovate. The actions we take now will determine how future generations live on planet Earth. We can change. We can grow. We can make the 21st century a green century. All we need to do is decide. The choice is ours. I'm Robert Tristan. Thank you for watching.